Hello, my name is Samantha Cash. I will be teaching a media literacy lesson for my lovely 6th graders here. All right, so first off, let's get started. Who here reads the news? Who here gets news? All right. How do you guys read your news now? Or do you watch your news? Where do you get your sources from?
The radio.
I rely on the BBC. I read them on social media.
Okay.
Yeah.
The newspaper.
The newspaper? Okay, so we've got a good variety of things here. So what are techniques that you guys know of for identifying the different types of news that you will get? Do you guys know about the different types of news there are?
No.
I'm subscribed to a lot of news emails.
Okay, so that's a really good one. You get a lot of variety then. Do you try to look at different ideas of what is happening in the media?
Yeah, I try to get different varieties of news. So I'm subscribed to obviously the BBC, and I do a lot of their different email news collections. But then I try to also look at other countries and get other sources, so that I'm not just relying on one source. But I like to do U.S. news, UK news, Al Jazeera. Yeah, Al Jazeera. I like their articles the best, actually.
So you read a lot of articles as well, too.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. What do you guys do to make sure that in this age of digital media that you're getting good news sources as well? Do you guys know the difference can you tell the difference between when something's fake news maybe? Or when something's maybe an opinion piece versus something that's factual news?
I rely on two different opinions, so I'll get the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, and I'll compare their stories. The Wall Street Journal, if it's opinion, it will say opinion on it.
That's very helpful, yes.
Yes.
Do you notice any differences between how the opinion articles are written? So even if it doesn't say opinion, maybe if you come across an article somewhere else, do you notice any cues of different types of words that they use maybe in opinion articles versus fact articles that are just giving you information?
Yes. What I see mostly is lack of coverage of some areas. Like if there's anything bad that happens in California, the Wall Street Journal, that's front page news. Whereas there'll be a different slant on it with the Washington Post. And I see that on news stations too, like at CNN. If there's something bad in California, they cover it. But if there's something bad in California, Fox News focuses on it.
Okay.
And so there's a difference in coverage.
That's a good observation. I like that one a lot. Do you guys have any opinions over here on that, or?
I do the same thing. I read the newspaper each morning because I like to get the local news. Usually the world news I've already heard, either on the radio or you've seen it on, so it's old news by the time. But the local news is important to know about. But if the world news, I will fact source it and look at other news stations or networks and other ways. Like I'll look to see what is the opposite opinion on Fox News, or look on the BBC or on CNN or just other news sources, and then I decide what I think is real and not real.
Okay. Do you have any?
No, I think on social media also just try to look at very different media. So in Denmark we have 3 large broadcasting companies, and I just follow all of them, and then I see how do they write or speak about these current events.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that you talk about how they speak about things, because do you notice any key words do you feel that there are keywords that are used in articles that maybe make you more emotional, or like you feel more connected to a piece even though you haven't really read the whole piece yet? Have you been able to identify that there's keywords that the writers are obviously putting in there because they need you to read their writing? So how do you try to feel your emotions when you're reading these articles as well?
I feel like for me, I like when it's not too emotional.
Yeah.
So I really like when it's more fact-based
Mhm.
and not these words that can be interpreted in different ways. So I
Mhm.
just need it to be more factual.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me defines like real news, when it's not too emotional and too
Mhm.
biased in some way. Yeah.
So I think one of the big things that we're going to talk about in this class today, because fake news is such a broad spectrum, and we all have like really big opinions on it all the time, but it's hard to identify, not just because they're trying to hide it, but also because there's different types of fake news. And it's not necessarily that it's fake news, but that sometimes people can present things as facts when they're actually opinions. And so we're going to go over some things in a worksheet today, right here, that are just good things for when you are going through your online research and your project later. These are good check marks for everyone to be able to look at. So when you're looking at a headline of something, is it just trying to grab your attention? Is it using a lot of exclamation marks? What kind of punctuation? Are they using bad grammar, showing that it's maybe just one person behind the scenes instead of a team of people who have gone through and made sure everything's okay? Are they using first person pronouns when they talk about things in the article? Are they inserting themselves into the narrative, making it more of a personal opinion rather than just as much as possible, a detached kind of review of the facts? So we can't go over all of these on the worksheet because we don't have our computers today, but I've printed out a few articles that we can go over. And I want you guys just to look at these articles and identify and talk as a group, because there's 4 different articles, and you don't have to read all of them, but just at a first glance, identify what you think they might be. Do you think that they're an opinion piece? Do you think that they're trying to give you factual information? And talk about maybe why you think those certain things and what key points do they have. Maybe it's a news source that you're familiar with for being truthful or for being not truthful. Maybe it's a type of article, that's maybe trying to be factual, or maybe it's trying to, get something from you, So feel free to discuss amongst your group things that maybe you see on your checklists that are reflected in these articles.
The article that I have in front of me is the Trolls Movie Tour Movie Review by Roger Ebert. And it's just rogerebert.com. And so looking at my domain authority and my activity sheet, I don't know who this person is. And so while it's like a movie review, so I think I'd be more lenient to trusting it, because I feel like movies are something that's very personalized. I would also probably never click on this because I would be like, I don't know who that is.
I like that you use the word personalized. So, thinking about like the conversation we just had about, where things come from and what type of, first person narratives are used, would you say that this is maybe more factual, or would you say that this is more opinion based?
I would say this is more opinion based, just because it's art, and I feel like when you're reviewing art, it's more about what you're feeling and your own personal reactions to it. So I would say that it's Robert's opinion of Trolls World Tour versus just like an overall. And I haven't read it too much, but like it does say like, oh, it's an aggressive assault on the kitty's sensations. So obviously not all parents would agree with that, because it is a very high-ranking film, unfortunately. And so I feel like a lot of people would disagree with this opinion. So from that, I can judge that it is an opinion piece.
Yeah. I also like that you noted out some vocabulary words used in that first sentence that were very strong and opinion based as well. You know, factual articles aren't always going to give you very vivid depictions of things. They're just going to give you like straight facts and stuff. They're not going to be as nice to read usually. Does anyone have another article that maybe reflects opinion, or do you think you have just like, you know, a reputable source, or?
My source is The Onion, which
Have you heard of The Onion before?
I have,
Oh, okay.
and I'm peeling away the layers here to try to understand this article. They state that NASA finds that there's strong evidence of red on Mars.
So there's red on Mars,
Yes,
says NASA.
this is a breakthrough, according to this article, a major milestone in interplanetary exploration. And they have some additional articles that they list. NASA welcomes litter of Mars rovers after successful breeding of Perseverance and Curiosity. And NASA astronauts prepare for mission to Mars by spending a year living in simulated colony on Venus. So I'm thinking this might be sarcasm or humor as opposed to actual news.
And as you mentioned, you're familiar with The Onion, and I don't know if anyone else is, but it is a purposefully fake, for funny laughs, news organization. And it was before all of the, problems that we've been having with fake news. They've been around for a while. But if you were not familiar with The Onion, how would you have identified? You mentioned the articles afterwards sounding too preposterous.
Well, I know that the Perseverance and Curiosity rovers on Mars were not bred to make litters of new things. And I also know that astronauts have not been spending a year on Venus, so I suspect this might be humor as opposed to news.
Yeah, so that's a really good technique to use, and keep in mind when you're reading, it may not always be that apparent, but using your former knowledge and, understanding from your base or asking questions. Maybe you see, the rovers are breeding and you don't know if that's not true or not. If it sounds interesting, look into it, because they cite a source there of NASA. And so as NASA is a government agency, you can go back through their records and look up what they're talking about to see if this could potentially be a factual situation.
My article was published on the BBC, so I feel like it's probably authentic.
BBC has come up a couple times today.
And but I feel like it's a worthy news source. But also, it's about a dinosaur, a plesiosaur, that giant sea monster skull unearthed in Dorset. So they did use some very descriptive words that would entice even a younger reader, I think, to look at it, because they said sea monster. But their source is also Sir David Attenborough. So I feel like, because he did talk about this on his documentary on New Year's Day, probably last year. So I feel like I could trust this source.
So you're using previous knowledge as well.
Yeah.
But if you guys have noticed, we know who the BBC is and we know who The Onion is. What would have happened if I had switched those two headlines? And so at the top of those pages, you saw a different headline. How would you have trusted these articles?
I would have fact searched it online.
Because
I would have looked to see if Sir David Attenborough actually did this research.
Because I definitely chose this one because of the use of giant sea monster skull.
Yeah.
Because coming from the BBC, you can, trust that it's going to be an interesting article. But seeing that headline anywhere else, what are they going to tell you about the Loch Ness monster? Like, it's So the use of vocabulary is not always going to help you figure out what is going on. You have to use multiple things on your checklist to be able to back source, even if you think it's a reputable site. All right, and then we have one more article.
We have an article from Goodreads, I think. This is about, so I think Goodreads asked some kid reporters to review some books, and it says here to review some great books that readers might enjoy this season. So I think as a beginning, I mean, it seems quite credible and nice that these kids are actually reviewing other kids' books, and I think that's a good like opinion review. But then again, as I was reading like some great books, so I was thinking like maybe some adults has been picking out these books and then asking the kids to review them, and I think that's where I'm like, is this their honest opinion, or is it just like you need to figure out what you think about this book and not any book in the universe?
Yeah, no, those are all really good takeaways. The other thing to think about whenever you look at a list, if an article has a list of things, then typically it's an opinion piece, because to put things in a list is typically to denote, you know, importance in a certain order, or, you know, to say that these are better. So it's one of those things that, you know, you can always kind of be like, well, this is just someone's opinion. It doesn't mean that it's, you know, wrong for you. Like, you might agree with them, but that doesn't mean it's completely factual and that these are the end-all be-all books you will ever read in your life. The other thing I wanted to point out was at the very beginning, and you touched on this sentence as well, books that readers might enjoy. And so the use of vocabulary that's a little wishy-washy is something, so that, you know, especially if it's an opinion piece and you kind of sometimes hear those wishy-washy words, that'll help you kind of understand that they're covering their bases, so that people can't, you know, be upset with them because it's an opinion piece and they have not recognized it as such. All right.
And also, I have no idea who these TFK kids are, but yeah.
Neither do
So
I.
I mean, that would be a reason for me not to read it, because I have no idea where they come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would also make me think it could be a list from a publisher,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
then they have, maybe it's TFK Publishing, and they put
Yeah.
together kids, and then those may be all their books that they,
Yeah.
and they would, so they're encouraging, because it's a list, like Miss Cash said, that it might just, you know, be so they can sell books over the holiday season.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to thank you guys all for doing this, and then our next step, if we were to continue this on, would be to have all of you write your own article, and not tell anyone if you're trying to write a news piece or an informational piece or an opinion piece about something that you enjoy or know a lot about. And then we're going to switch articles, and then you have to identify your peers' writings, and we'll analyze those together. So